המברכת האחרונה היא דוקטור אירנה אוה-בן-דוד, מנהלת מכון לאו בק בירושלים. אירנה, אני מזמין אותך לבמה.
Dear Professor Justice Baeck, dear Ambassador Stefan Seibert, dear Vice President of the German Parliament Petra Pau, dear President of the IGUN Dvora Haberfeld, dear Olli and Michael Bach, and dear participants and guests of this conference, good morning. I would like to welcome you all in the name of the Leo Baeck Institute Jerusalem, Machon Leo Baeck, for German Jewish history and culture, to this conference in memory of Justice Gabriel Bach. The Leo Baeck Institute was founded in 1955, almost 70 years ago, in Jerusalem, with parallel institutes in London and New York, those centers where most of the surviving German Jewry settled after the Shoah. The aim of the institute was then and is today to document and research the history and culture of German and Central European Jewry. It is on us to foster the liberal values of German Jewry and to make the past accessible to the public, especially since we are convinced that the historical experience of German Jewry is of great importance to many topics that Israeli society is dealing with today. So before turning to Gabriel Bach's life and work, his role in the Eichmann trial, and the contribution to Israel's diplomatic relations, especially with Germany, and before discussing the current pressuring questions regarding the Israeli judicial system and the future of Israel as a liberal democracy against the background of Justice Bach's work and values, allow me to step back and to give you a glimpse into a wider historical context of the Bach family. Gabriel Bach, as we have heard from Ambassador Seibert, was born in March 1927 in Halberstadt, a town in northeast Germany, a gate to the Harz Mountains. Halberstadt was since medieval times home to Jews. Similar to other places in Germany, Jews built and rebuilt their homes in this town. Depending on the ruling powers, they were allowed to stay and were protected, or they were prosecuted and expelled. So, for example, after the Black Death in 14th century, also in the light of the Reformation in 16th century, they were allowed to build their first synagogue in early 17th century, which was destroyed only a couple of years later, in 1621. In early 18th century, Halberstadt became the home of one of the most famous court Jews of his days, Issachar Bernd Lehmann. Besides the Wertheimers, Oppenheimers, and Rothschilds, Lehmann was one of the representatives of the Jewish economic elite that reached exceptional success in these days. Besides his work for the court of the ruler of Saxony, Bernd Lehmann considerably supported Jewish life in Halberstadt, donated money to build a synagogue and a rabbinical stool, and then Halberstadt, with 10% of Jewish inhabitants, was one of the biggest Jewish communities in the mid of Germany. Also in 700, some 300 kilometers northeast of Halberstadt, a factory of brass has been founded next to the town of Eberswalde. This was one of the first industrial centers in Brandenburg. Since the 1860s, it was owned by the Hirsch family. By the late 1920s, it became the biggest brass factory in Europe, among others important for the production of weapons. The company suffered from the economic crisis in the late 1920s. After the Nazis came to power, they took over the company. Some of the members of the Hirsch family emigrated from Germany. Some committed suicide. Victor Bach, Gabriel Bach's father, was a general director of the Hirsch Kupfer and Messingwerke, this important factory of heavy industry in Germany. Victor himself was born in Melrichstadt, in Franken, in South Germany, in 1894. He was a son of a horse dealer named Gabriel Bach and his wife Minna. Animal trade was one of the typical professions of Jews who lived in the rural areas of southern Germany. After graduating from school, Victor joined the Hirsch company in Halberstadt, much to the joy of his father, and Victor started to build his career and his family from there. During the November pogroms in 1938, the synagogue that was built by Bernd Lehmann in Halberstadt was plundered and the Torah scrolls were thrown onto the streets. But it was not burned down like many other synagogues. The Jews of Halberstadt had to pay for its demolition. Why this exception? It was so well integrated into the street of timbered houses that burning it down would have endangered all the neighboring houses. But the family of Gabriel Bach did not have to experience this. They have moved already earlier to Berlin, but more important, they managed to flee from Germany on time and went in October 1938 to Amsterdam. Also from there, they left on time, just a month prior to the German invasion in 1940. The Zionist Victor Bach immigrated with his family to Palestine, to Jerusalem. In a nutshell, the history of the ancestors of Justice Gabriel Bach and his children shows German Jewish history in modern times, like in a picture book. And I do not know yet how far into the past this German Jewish family tree is actually going. The image of the Halberstadt synagogue that was not so well integrated into the architecture of this medieval town that it could not have been burned without damage to the other buildings, and that the Jewish community of the place had been ordered to destroy it and to pay for it by themselves, is such an intense image of this past. It shows the immense success of German Jewry, the integration and their unsecured position at the same time, that was depending on the ruling powers of the goodwill of the ruling authorities, the experience of religious minority, the fight for the recognition and civil rights, the experience of expulsion, persecution, and of immigration. After the Second World War and the Shoah, Gabriel Bach decided to study law in London. And I guess that the need for a strong democracy with a stable judicial system that guarantees and secures the civil rights was one of the lessons learned from this past. My thanks go to Dr. Orly Bach and Michael Bach, the children of Gabriel Bach, for the tremendous commitment in remembering their father and advancing his values today. Many thanks for your good energies and trust in realizing this conference together, and for our continued conversation over the last many months. And I also would like to thank the Association of Israelis of Central European Origin, the Irgun, Dora Haberfeld and Leora Schramm-Peters for the good cooperation of so many years. I would like to thank Professor Shai Lavi and the Van Leer in Jerusalem team for having us here today. And I would like, last but not least, to very warmly thank my colleagues at the LBI Jerusalem for the dedicated work in preparing this conference, the Vice Director of the Institute, Dr. Sharon Livney, who as always managed to keep all the balls impressively in the air and was key in preparing the program and event today, our activities coordinator, Raya Michael, who took care of all the complex logistics of the event. I would like to thank Aryeh De Haas, Yael Ben-Avi, Rezi Perlman, Anja Segal, Adi Ashtahan, Lars Hendrik, Philipp Grossinger, and Amir Horowitz. And I wish you all an interesting and a meaningful conference. Toda rabba.